from Gujarat, Dwarka, there is a famous incident from their boyhood at the Gurukula. The two boys had been sent into the nearby forest in the Gurukula of the sage Sandipani, in the ancient city of Ujjain. In the time of the Mahabharata, two young boys studied side by side. One of them was a poor Brahman boy named Sudama. He came from a household so poor that his clothes were stitched together from rags. He had walked all the way to Ujjain on bare feet. He had no possessions except the loincloth he wore. The other boy was named Krishna. He was a prince. He was the son of Vasudev and Devki, the cousin of the great Kaurava and Pandav clans, a member of the wealthy Yadav dynasty. He had arrived at the Gurukula with attendants and a wardrobe. The two boys, despite their wildly different circumstances, became inseparable. They shared a sleeping mat. They shared their food. They studied side by side. They wrestled. They laughed. They fell asleep every night for many years on the same bedroll under the same thatched roof. They were, in every sense that matters in Indian friendship tradition, brothers. There is a famous incident from their boyhood at the Gurukula. The two boys had been sent into the nearby forest by their teacher's wife to gather firewood for the evening cooking fire. They went into the forest. They began to gather sticks. A heavy rain came on suddenly. The forest grew dark. The two boys could not find their way back to the ashram. They climbed up into the branches of a large banyan tree to wait out the rain. They were soaked. They were cold. They were hungry. The teacher's wife, suspecting they would be delayed, had given them a small bundle of dried berries to share. Sudama had the bundle. As the night grew darker and the rain grew heavier, Sudama, in a moment of weakness, ate all the berries himself. He did not give any to Krishna. Krishna, who knew exactly what was happening, for he was, after all, an avatar of Vishnu, said nothing. He pretended not to notice. He let his friend eat the berries. He let his friend keep his pride. They eventually returned to the ashram. Krishna never mentioned the berries. The friendship continued. Years later, when their lives had diverged, Sudama would still occasionally remember that rainy night and that small unkindness, and would feel a small private weight of shame. Many years later, after their education at the Gurukula was finished, the two friends went their separate ways. Krishna left to begin his great work, to defeat the tyrant Kamsa in Mathura, to lead the Yadvas, to build the great coastal city of Dwarka in present-day Gujarat, to become the king philosopher who would deliver the Bhagavad Gita on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. Sudama left to return to his Brahman village. He married. He had several children. He continued to live in dire poverty. His wife, a devoted woman named Sushila, did her best to manage. They had no land. Sudama did not, in line with Brahman custom, take paid work. He survived on alms. The household frequently went without food. The children sometimes cried in hunger at night. Sudama, who had become a deep scholar of the Vedas and a quiet local sage, did not complain. He worshipped Krishna privately. He never sought out his old friend. He never asked for help. He simply persisted in his small village hut with his loving wife and his hungry children, while Krishna ruled in distant Dwarka. One evening, Sudama's wife Sushila could bear it no longer. The children had not eaten properly for many days. She approached her husband, who was sitting on the veranda reciting Vedas, and she said, "My lord, I have heard from the village merchants that your boyhood friend Krishna is now a great king at Dwarka. He is the wealthiest man in western India. Why do you not go to him? He will surely give us something. Even a small gift from him would be enough to feed our children for a year. Sudama looked at his wife. He was deeply reluctant. He said, I cannot. Krishna is now a king. I am still a poor Brahman. To go to him as a beggar would be to defile our friendship. It would suggest that I value him for his wealth. I cannot do it. Sushila was insistent. She begged him. The children, she pointed out, were starving. Eventually Sudama relented. He agreed to go. He said, but I will not go empty-handed. I will not arrive as a beggar. I will take him a gift. I will take him whatever we can spare from this house. Sushila looked around their hut. There was nothing in it. She remembered, however, that they had a small bag of poha, flattened beaten rice, in one corner, that she had been saving for an emergency. She took the small bag of poha. She tied it in a torn corner of her sari. She gave it to her husband as the gift to take to the king of Dwarka. Sudama walked from his village all the way to Dwarka, a journey of perhaps several weeks on foot, across western India, all the way to the coast of present-day Gujarat. He arrived at the gates of Dwarka in his torn loincloth. He was thin. He was sunburned. He carried only a small bag of beaten rice tied in a piece of cloth. The gate guards looked at him. They did not believe him when he said he was a personal friend of the king. They were on the verge of turning him away when one of them, in pity, agreed to send word to the palace, just in case. The message was carried inside. It reached Krishna's chambers. Krishna heard the description, a thin Brahman in torn clothes, carrying a small bag of rice, claiming to know the king from boyhood. Krishna, the Bhagavata Purana records, dropped what he was doing. He ran. He literally ran, across the courtyards of his own palace, in his royal robes, all the way to the front gate. He saw Sudama. He embraced him. He pulled him into the palace by the hand. He brought him to his own throne room, washed his feet with his own hands, a king washing the feet of a Brahman in torn clothes, and seated him on a silken cushion. The court, the Bhagavata says, was utterly silent. Sudama, sitting on the silken cushion in Krishna's throne room, was overcome with embarrassment. He looked around at the gold and the marble. He looked at the small bag of poha tied in his torn sari corner. He tried to tuck it behind his back. He hoped Krishna would not see it. Krishna saw it. He reached around Sudama's body. He took the small bag. He opened it. He held up a handful of the beaten rice. He said, in front of his whole court, "My dear friend, you have brought me my favorite food." He ate a handful of the poha right there, on his throne, dry, with no condiment. He praised it. He told the court that there was no food in Dwarka, no matter how rich, that compared to this poor village beaten rice brought by his oldest friend. Sudama watched. He felt, the Bhagavata says, both honored and ashamed. The two friends spent the next several days together. They reminisced about the Gurukula. They laughed about the berries in the banyan tree. Krishna never raised the matter of money. Sudama, who had come specifically to ask for money, could not bring himself to mention it. After 3 days, Sudama said his farewells. He turned to walk home. Krishna saw him off at the gate. They embraced. Sudama walked back the way he had come, empty-handed, his small bag of poha gone, having received nothing from his friend except love. Sudama walked back across western India to his village. He grew increasingly anxious as he approached home. His wife, he knew, would ask what Krishna had given him. He would have to admit, with shame, that he had asked for nothing and received nothing. He had failed his children. The walk took weeks. He arrived at his village. He turned down the dusty lane where his hut stood. He stopped. The hut was no longer there. In its place stood a large, white, three-storied house, the largest house in the village. A garden surrounded it. A small fountain played in the courtyard. Servants were carrying water. Sudama was bewildered. He thought he had walked into the wrong village. He turned to ask directions. As he turned, the door of the white house opened. His wife Sushila came out. She was dressed in fine cloth. His children, clean, well-fed, smiling, ran out to greet him. They hugged him. They led him into the house. Sushila explained, with tears in her eyes, that this house had been there when she woke up that morning. There had been a chest of gold in the courtyard. There had been a cow in the shed. There had been a horse tied at the gate. There had been a note, in elegant calligraphy, that said only, "From your friend who once ate a handful of beaten rice." Sudama, the Bhagavata says, sat down in his new garden and wept. He wept for the friend who had loved him too much to ever ask for anything, but who had given him everything anyway. The story of Sudama and Krishna is one of the most beloved in the entire Vaishnav tradition of India, but it is most beloved in Gujarat, the modern state where Krishna built his coastal kingdom of Dwarka. Gujarat's most famous 19th century mystic, Mahatma Gandhi himself, was born in Porbandar, only a few kilometers from Sudama's traditional village. Gandhi quoted the Sudama story frequently in his writings and his speeches. The Sudama Mandir at Porbandar, on the Gujarati coast, has been a major pilgrimage site for over 500 years. The temple's daily ritual includes the offering of a small handful of beaten rice, poha, to the deity. The Gujarati Vaishnav devotional tradition has the story painted, sung, and dramatized in hundreds of versions. The reason the story endures, the Gujarati Pandits will tell you, is not because of the gold or the white house at the end. It is because of the night in the forest, when Sudama ate all the berries, and Krishna pretended not to notice. The whole story, the rest of it, is just an extended footnote to that small forgiveness. The friendship endured because one of the friends, knowing exactly what the other had done, chose to never bring it up. That, the Gujarati elders say, is what friendship is. Tomorrow's story comes from another corner of India. Subscribe to walk with us through the folklore of every region, in your language.